I'm Jeremy and I'm here at the TRQ Research and Development Facility today, where we test all of our parts on a fleet of vehicles. And now I'm going to help you repair yours. We're going to crack these lug nuts loose while the car is on the ground, because once we jack up the car, it'll be much easier to take these lug nuts off. These are 21mm lug nuts. So now that the car is up in the air, we're going to take each one of these lug nuts off and then pull the wheel off. So I've now just taken off all 5 lug nuts, and as you can see, the wheel is stuck on the hub. So the easy way to fix this is to put one of the nuts back on. Just put it on finger tight. You're just trying to prevent the wheel from not falling off unexpectedly. And then we're going to go to the back side of the wheel and pop it off with a pry bar. We're going to just put it up here against the ball joint and pry against the wheel. And as you can see, it pops right off. And then we'll take the wheel off the car. Your lower ball joint is right here, and it attaches to the control arm with 3 bolts. It attaches to the knuckle with a nut and a clip. So we're going to start off by pulling this clip out. You can do it with a pair of needle nose pliers. Oh, there we go. Looks like you have to lift it up first and then pull it out. All right, so now I'll take a 19mm wrench, put it on this nut, and try and loosen it up. All right. Looks like it actually cracked loose. So now I'm just going to spin this the rest of the way off. All right, there we go. To remove the knuckle from the ball joint, or the ball joint from the knuckle, there's a couple different ways you can do this. One way is with a pickle fork, which is, it's like a metal fork that goes in between the ball joint and the knuckle, and that pries it down. If you don't have a pickle fork, you can usually just use a hammer. And if you hit the hammer right here, it'll loosen up the ball joint so it'll come out of here. So let's try the hammer trick. All right. So you can see hitting it loosened it up, and now we just got to pry down on it a little bit to get the ball joint out of the knuckle. Now the ball joint is connected to the control arm with these 3 bolts. There's actually 2 nuts and 1 bolt. And I'm going to try to loosen these, but first I'm going to throw some rust penetrant on them so they come off a little bit easier. All right, so now I'm going to put this 17mm wrench on here and see if they come loose. All right, there's the first one. Let's try the second one. All right, 2 out of 3 is pretty good. Let's try this one next. All right, they're all cracked loose. Now I'm going to put a socket on them, and I'm going to take all 3 out. All right, here we go. 17mm socket on a ratchet. That one's going to come out by hand. Nice. All right, and there's the bolt. With those removed, watch your fingers because there's kind of some weight here, and we're going to need to push down on the control arm and pull this ball joint up to get it out. Like so. So here we have the old ball joint. You can see it's old. In this case, it's not actually damaged. It's maybe a little looser than it should be, but it's still in all right shape. We're just replacing this because, well, we're making a video for you. The new one, you can see, it comes with the nut. It is built exactly the same way as the original one. It's got the sealed ball joint, so you don't have to grease it. And you reuse your nuts on this side. And it also comes with a new cotter pin. To get the ball joint in, we need to pry down on this control arm. So we're going to go ahead and use the pry bar again. We're going to slip it through the hole in the control arm. And that will allow us to pry down on the control arm nice and easy. So we're going to take the ball joint and slide it into the control arm. Like that. And then we should be able to get the ball joint into the knuckle. All right. So now they're all generally in place, and let's start putting the nuts on. You want to get all 3 threaded in before you tighten any of them up. That way you know they're going to go in smoothly. Okay, so now I have my 17mm socket, and I'm going to start tightening these up. We've got these 3 snugged up, and now we're going to torque them to 68 foot-pounds. Here we go. All right, just going to double check them. Now we want to wiggle this ball joint so the knuckle slides down on top of it, or the control arm pushes up into it. Let's see how it works. Well, that worked out pretty well. Now we can take this 19mm castle nut and we can start threading it down on the top of the ball joint. Now we can use our 19mm wrench to tighten this up. It's going to be a long and slow process because there's not a lot of room to spin this thing. So this is now kind of all the way down, and there's 2 things that we need to keep in mind here. This is supposed to be torqued down to 98 foot-pounds, but there's absolutely no way you can get a torque wrench in here. So we're just going to have to use our muscle and tighten it down as best we can. The other thing is we need to line up the hole in the ball joint with the top of the castle nut so that we can get a cotter pin in there. So first thing we're going to do is tighten it up as tight as we feel 98 foot-pounds is. All right, that feels pretty good. So now I just want to line up the hole in the ball joint with the castle nut. And I'm just about there. All right, that looks perfect. So now we've got our cotter pin. We're going to slide it right in this hole. And then we're going to bend over the cotter pin so that it stays in place. Like this. Generally, I bend one side over the top, and then I bend one side down. All right, and now the ball joint is in place. We can put the wheel back on the car. So we're going to lift it up, slide it right on. And then always start your lug nuts by hand because you don't want to cross thread them. Now I like to tighten all these up by hand before I actually put the torque wrench on. That one's a little stiff, so we'll go to this one. All right, we've now got our torque wrench set to 76 foot-pounds, and we're going to go ahead and torque this. Now that it's back on the ground, we can torque it and the wheel won't turn. So let's do that. All right, I just like double checking them, just in case I missed one or something. All right, now we're all torqued.